So we're going to call the meeting to order. The Village of Sayward respectfully acknowledges that we are on the land we are gathered on the unceded territory of the Comox First Nation, the traditional keepers of this land. Introduction of late items. None. Approval of agenda. Let's see. Everybody okay with the agenda today?
Yes.
Sorry, Councillor Paulson. Good. Great. Minutes of previous meeting. None. Petition and delegations. We don't have any. Correspondence. None. Council reports. None. Reports of committee. None. Mayor's report. None. Unfinished business. None. Staff report. Financial plan 2022 to 2026 version 3. It's a recommended resolution that the committee of the whole receives the financial plan from 2022 to 2026 version 3 for report, information, and discussion. Do I have a motion, please? Second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Discussion. All in favor?
Oh,
Thank you. You're all in favor?
are we going to discuss? Oh, in discussion. Okay.
Would you like to discuss it? Yeah, we're going to go into discussion. We're just receiving it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yep. I'm in favor.
That's okay. Opposed? Hearing none. Recommended resolution is passed. So CAO or CFO, who's taking the lead on that? CAFO.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is version 3 of the financial plan. And again, I've just included basically the same information to start as the last staff report with our little timeline and where we are. The financial plan is nearing completion. There's a few more notes from the first and second round minutes. So I've included those in the report here. So what we want to do is probably just go through each category again. If there's any questions or comments on what's included in the report here. Sorry, we just have somebody coming late to the meeting, so I'm getting a bit distracted here. Okay, so if we go through community relations, we have interpreted signage at KFN Totem Pole and other key village locations. That was not included in the financial plan, as council had mentioned at previous meetings, that's something that we can focus with the Tourism Committee and Comox First Nation to potentially fund. Again, I've said this in previous meetings, anything that is orange in this staff report is included in the financial plan. So the next item is the legal agreement to clarify terms and communications around early start times of Western Forest products. That has been included. And measures for cooling center in place. That was left out of the financial plan as staff are going to look at alternate cooling options during heat events. Some comments mentioned in discussion was about extending pool hours, maybe possibly having some misting stations at the fire hall. So there hasn't been anything put in the budget for that. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, clarification on legal agreement to clarify terms, communication around early start. It's also in terms of night.
Yes, yeah, that I'm taking everything on the left-hand side is directly from your strategic plan. So that wording was included in your strategic plan.
Okay.
Yeah. Is there any questions on that section under community relations? I think it's pretty straightforward. Oh, CAO.
Oh. Thanks very much, CFO. I just wanted to add that the measures for cooling center in place that may be addressed as we're currently applying, as mentioned before, for the co-op community spaces grant. And if we're successful in that, cooling is going to be addressed as part of the HVAC.
in place?
Well, successful, if we're successful in that grant application, you will have HVAC system in place.
Right, but there's nothing in place at this time.
No, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to economic development, there's been 10,000 added to contract labor in the admin department, and that's to help with the to access additional staff resources for administering new building and development applications. There's anticipated increase in those for 2022. So those funds have been put aside just to help with those processes.
Sorry, Steve, is there any projection on cost that we covered?
Um,
Building permits, or do we have to change the building permits fees? to get into that?
Yep, that's correct. So that's another item that's on your list for this year to do, and that's something the CAO, excuse me, will be looking at, is getting those fee structures updated.
Thank you. I have a question about the contract labor / consultant to work on increased volume of building permits and DPAs. So would that be something that the CAO is generally handling and dealing with?
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate the question. I think there's some things our office can deal with. What we're looking at this coming year is subdivision applications and some areas of expertise that will require third parties. We have reached out to the SRD for some assistance there, and we are getting a sense of what that looks like in the coming week or 2 weeks ahead. So that $10,000 that's been put in there covers what we think will be forecasted increases in some of these more complex building permits, rezoning apps, and subdivision.
So I do have I do have a concern about that, particularly because the role of the CAO is to manage the village business. And so if that's part of the managing the village business, I would hope that we would be able to get some mentoring or guidance, but I wouldn't want to see it all contracted out to the SRD, because it's one of the routine, regular jobs at the CAO.
If you don't mind, I'll jump in there for a sec. Yeah, what's going to be happening, because our CAO is very new. He's going to be working with the SRD and going through that. So learning that at the same time as he goes through and what happened and what he has to do in the future too. So for next year, for example, we won't have to use the SRD. The SRD is also a free service to us in that respect, because of the monies that we already pay into the SRD. We're able to use their resources and their guidance. And Dave Leach has made it very clear that he'll be happy to work with our new CAO and give direction and assist in any way possible.
I just wanted to clarify that so that we're clear on what the focus is on for the CAO. I know it's a huge learning curve, and obviously it's helpful to have guidance and mentorship. So I appreciate that.
Agreed. CAO?
The one point I will make on that, however, is when it comes to subdivisions, we want to be very careful in terms of liabilities. And so the SRD has, a team of planners that can assist navigating some of those waters. And where we can potentially, or any municipality can potentially get into some hot water would be with some of these large applications. So subdivisions, making sure that everything is well structured for that. It wouldn't be something where there's any control given up in terms of, we've got a very unique community here with some very specific needs, knowing that, water and sewer drainage are all important factors that have to be considered with any of these things. So that wouldn't go anywhere. Thank you.
Thank you, CFO.
Okay, so moving on to the next page. The final item in that category was progress made on the Working Waterfront project. That was postponed to 2023. So I've just got a little note there that it's a future project to be looked at during the next strategic planning session, which will probably be held in the late fall, early winter after the new council is in place. Infrastructure upgrades and asset replacement. We've added 25,000 for the water master plan, 10,000 for sewage capacity study, and another section here, sorry, risk management strategy was 20,000. That's in a different section. So those are estimated amounts given to me from the CAO, and the source of funds for those will be the Community Works Fund Reserve. Next item, drainage improvements project. The total project cost is coming out to about 1.8 million. Three different funding sources. Government of Canada is 40%, Province of BC 33%, and the village is to fund 27%. So based on last committee of the whole meeting, actually I think it was the last regular meeting, there was some discussion about this. There was a staff report in the agenda, and it was determined that Sayward's portion will be 464,880. 400,000 of that will be funded from long-term debt through the MFA, and the remainder will be funded from the Community Works Fund Reserve. Newcastle Dam project, that's just a carry forward. Short and long-term projects for the Kelsey
Sorry.
Center. Oh,
Sorry, Newcastle Dam, we don't have any exact numbers on that, do we?
nope, it's all been approved in previous budgets, so there isn't anything at this point. I believe the CAO is going to bring something back to council as to what's happening in 2022, but as far as what's in the budget is just from carry forward for now. Sorry, so short and long-term projects for the Kelsey Center, that's probably going to be brought to council at a future meeting in conjunction with some more information about the grant application that the CAO is working on. And then the last three items, we've discussed this a couple times. It's just some operating expenses for the fire department, and those are carry forwards as well from 2021. Living Green, solar panels for the water treatment plant. It was determined that that project is not feasible. So that has been removed, or I guess not put into the financial plan for 2022. Next item is the water meter bylaw in place, and that's just a little bit of a placeholder for any legal or contract labor that we may use for getting that in place. The electric vehicle charging station is not in the financial plan. Staff will obtain more info at a later date and bring that to council. Again, that might be something for the strategic planning session in the fall. Community garden revitalized. That one I've got to be determined. My recommendation is the Climate Action Revenue Incentive Program Reserve be used this year for something. So there's about 23,000 in there. I think it's a matter of use it or lose it this year. And so need council direction on here. There was some discussion at the previous meeting about using a portion of that money for new doors for the Kelsey Center. Yeah, I guess tonight maybe I'm looking for some council direction on that. I'm not sure if there was any quotes yet on what those doors are going to cost. So maybe I'll pass it over to the CEO to discuss. Again, the items on the left-hand side are straight from your strategic plan. So if you wanted to stick to what's in that, then that would be the community garden. But if whatever council's wish is, so CAO.
Yeah, when it comes to the Kelsey Center, we did have a contractor come up today and take a look in terms of doing some quotes in preparation for this grant. Part of that is, of course, the doors. These were quoted previously through Public Works, And the price that we're estimating that to come in should be in and around that total for all exterior doors. It was confirmed that all exterior doors are in quite rough shape, allowing ambient air to pass through from the outside, making HVAC system, your current one, working that much harder. So at this point, I'm still waiting for a firm quote from that particular vendor, but we're expecting in and around that amount.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but the CFO is looking for direction on where we should be spending that car rep reserve at 23.5, correct? Now, if you're talking about the community garden, 23.5 is an extremely large amount of money for community garden. So what type of limitation does that grant have?
Not a lot. I mean, there are some parameters around the spending, so it has to be something green. It has to reduce potentially carbon into the atmosphere. You know, I can definitely get that information for council, but it's basically a green project. So yes, 23,000 is a lot. You could do a lot with that for the community garden. You could get a greenhouse, you can build new garden beds, you can get the community involved, you can expand the area. You know, it does sound like a lot, but once you start buying, you know, utensils and maybe new lawnmowers and things for using down there, it's you will eat that money up pretty quick for expanding the garden.
Okay, could we use part of that money, for example, to buy a tree that would sit where the former Christmas tree sat, and one that we could use on an annual basis to where it grows, and that would be our official Seaward Christmas tree. Councillor Tinsley, what do you think?
I think that's an interesting idea. But I just wanted to come back to the numbers because I believe the CAO was the doors would take up this whole amount, I believe is what he was saying. And so I think we have to kind of look and say, if we're going to do these Kelsey doors, which is green because it's reducing the heat costs and various other things, are we going to, is it going to be that whole amount going in there and there's really nothing left and we're looking at more of a volunteer, you know, thing for the community garden, at least this year, right?
Yeah, now one of the things for the community garden is generally it's based on volunteers, and you would only spend, I would assume, from what I understand, just a few $1,000s on plants and so on and so forth. So I think to make some room for the Christmas tree being put in, because it would have to be planted and rooted, and that would be, I would assume, would cost us anywhere from $2,000 to $3,000 to get a tree and planted correctly.
Yeah.
Here. Now, in terms of the doors for the Kelsey Center, the other thing that we have to keep in mind, if we're not using the COVID grant or that for it, we still have a study coming up, a feasibility study coming up on all rec centers within the SRD. And if at one point in time that they come back and they show that in order to get, for example, participation from the Valley into help contributing to the cost of the Kelsey Center and determining whether or not we keep ownership of it, spending a lot of money on the Kelsey Center is a little premature until we know for sure whether or not we're going to be running it or the SRD is, in my opinion.
So those are good points. Can I just, so to make a compromise would be to take about $3,000 off that and, you know, put the rest for the doors, right? Put the 3,000 to the Christmas tree this year and, you know, get that started and then, you know, source out with the garden, starting it slow this year, with seeds and stuff. Or are you saying like no money should go to the doors? I mean, it's coming from a grant, so everyone's going to benefit, to all the users, right?
True. Councillor Paulson, what do you think?
Thank you. I think it is incumbent upon us as the council to maintain the Kelsey Center in good shape, and those doors have have been in bad shape for very many years. And I think it would be, the money would best be suited to go towards replacing the exterior doors. Regardless of whether SRD is taking it over, we still need to maintain it and upkeep it like it needs to be. So I would suggest that we go with replacing the doors, and if there's money left over for a Christmas tree, I think that's a great idea too. As for the community garden, I know there is some discussion with the Strathcona Food Hub and looking at working with Sayward Food. Can't remember what the word is, Sayward Food Table. That's part of making sure there's food enough for everyone, is having a community garden. And so that could involve volunteers with the people that are part of the food table group.
Councillor Kirschner, what do you think?
I like the idea of doing the doors first, make them the priority. And the garden, if there's money left over, okay. Priority is the doors as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Why don't we wait until we get the firm cost, and we'll see what kind of dollars we're looking at. We can make this decision, move it forward to the council meeting on the 1st. Everybody agree?
Yes.
Councillor Tinsley, yes? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. CFO?
Okay, so moving on to tourism development. $5,000 has been put in the budget for upgraded signage, cleaning and painting village buildings and structures, and enhancing village gardens, including ORV signage. And that again would be a collaboration possibly with the tourism committee to determine the needs in the community and work with them on getting that project up and going. Village operations, create and staff public works on-call backup position. That is not in the budget as of yet. So that is something that the CAO is working on and will bring to council at a future date. Again, I've said this at previous meetings that the financial plan can be amended at any time. So that's something that council will see at a later date. And the risk management strategy I mentioned before with the water master study and the sewage capacity study, that has been included as 20,000 coming out of the Community Works Fund Reserve.
And those numbers that you've received for the risk management and the drainage and so on and so forth is actually coming from a company that does that kind of work, correct?
I believe so, yeah. I've
Okay.
got these numbers from the CAO, so I believe he go ahead, CAOs.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I can confirm that those were the high-end numbers that came from Urban Systems.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Or
No, sorry, of course.
I know you
Go
can't
ahead.
see me. That's why I'm making noise.
It's all good.
I wanted to come back, sorry, to the community relations where it's not in the budget for the interpretive signage at KFN, totem pole and other, which relates to our reconciliation work and things like that. I'm just a little concerned that we don't really have anything in there. And I think we have to, what's the word for it? Have some skin in the game and show there's some dollars committed to this so we can move this forward.
I agree. That's a good catch. Okay, well, there's $5,000 that's for upgrading signage.
I
That
guess that's
is
where I'm
in the-
coming from. The signage is sort of like cleaning up our standard signage and maybe improving some standard signage, but the other one seems to be about, this whole reconciliation and it's a separate kind of
Where's
thing.
that located? Sorry, where's that located? Community Relations, page 4. Thank you. There we go. Okay,
Like, I think we need
and,
it,
no, I
we need it.
agree.
yeah, we need it in the budget and some kind of dollars there for skin in the game. In my
I
opinion.
agree. So, would $3,000 be a decent, enough skin for a decent start?
Yeah, I think so, right?
CFO, what do you think? $3,000? Counselor Paulson?
I agree that that's a good idea.
Counselor Kushner?
I agree.
He agrees if you can't hear him. Okay, so we'll put $3,000 in the budget for the interpretive signage from KFM. Okay, good catch, Counselor Tinsley.
Oh, thank you.
CFO?
Okay, so moving on, I've just included some notes on some other things. The drainage improvements project, again, at the regular council meeting on February 15th, council approved the village portion of this project in the amount of $464,880. And as I mentioned before, 400,000 of this will be debt financed through the MFA, with the remainder being funded from the Community Works Fund Reserve. And that project's anticipated to start in 2023. The grant application is being submitted this week. Typically with this funding stream, it takes a long, long time to hear back from them as to whether the project's approved or not. So we don't anticipate hearing until late fall, early winter. And so, yeah, the project wouldn't start until next year.
Is there no way to actually contact somebody from there to say, hey, what's the status?
Not usually, no. We would just get a standard response back saying, you know, your applications are being reviewed and yeah, we'll inform you when we know, kind of thing. It's a federal program, so.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Item 2, salaries, wages, and benefits have been included in this version of the financial plan, and that will be addressed during the in-camera meeting. Item 3, grant writing contract. So the CAO will discuss that with council. I believe there's a staff report on the March 1st agenda, but I'm not sure if he wanted to briefly discuss that tonight.
Absolutely, thank you. What I've been doing is reaching out to other municipalities to try and get a sense of those municipalities that are truly successful in bringing money in. And there's one that really stands out that has brought in $10 million worth of funding to their small community since 2019. How they were operating is they use a grant writing service for major grants. The CAO will always write straightforward grants or ones that, you know, your 5,000, 10,000s, fairly straightforward. But when we get into large grants, there's a level of expertise there that's required to make sure that those are submitted in a way that approval is likely. And so there is a number of grant writing outfits. Urban Systems, of course, is the most recent one that we've used. There's PSD out of Victoria as well. And there is one more that has been recommended to me that I've yet to contact. Case in point is there's grant alerts that come out as well, often before we hear about them. And that service is $400 a year with a 3-year contract in one of the quotes I've received. And then it's estimated that large scale grants will cost between $8,000 from one and up to $10,000 for the application for large scale grants. And that's typically grants that require engineers and so forth to weigh in on. So that level of expertise when the grant goes in is more assured to be successful. So I'll have more information to present at the council meeting on the 1st.
Thank you. CFO?
Okay, the next item is tax and user fee increases. At the February 8th Committee of the Whole meeting, staff were asked to prepare information on various percentage increases for municipal taxes and user fees. So below is the information as requested. I've included percent increases of 3%, 5, 7, 8.5, 9.5, and 10 for each item, municipal taxes, water, sewer, solid waste, and
Annually.
correct. On the very right-hand side is the total for each of those percentage increases. So in this,
I'm sorry.
go ahead.
The annual increase, for example, we go to water or municipal tax, and then we go under water, say at 8.5, it's $112. Is that correct?
Correct.
Add sewer at 33 and then solid waste at 24, which is the total per house at $189.
Correct. If every item was increased by 8.5%.
Right. Now, that gives you the water, sewer and solid waste, but what about the other?
Oh, municipal taxes is the first item there. Sorry, my chart didn't show the lines. So you've got your percentage increase and then you've got municipal taxes.
Okay, so
And
the
then your
municipal,
water, sewer, solid waste and your total.
oh, I see. So the municipal tax is the 112.
Yep, sorry about
Okay,
that. Yeah,
no, that's fine.
it's just
I
not lining up correctly.
just wanted clarification. Thank you.
So for
So when do we
20
have to pick this?
Well, so I was going to just mention for 2022, what I've recommended is a 7% increase for municipal taxes and sewer user fees, a 5% increase for water user fees, and a 3% increase for solid waste user fees. So if you flip to the next page, page 7, I've got my other little chart that shows those percentage increases and the total, what that effect will be on each home, on an average home.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but did we not talk about in the last cow that if we went to 7%, that's a break even and nothing going to reserve?
That's correct. So
So that,
that would just cover the expenses that have been put into this financial plan, yes. But I mean, again, I think council needs to look at, you know, it's entirely up to council, of course, but these are they're going to be big increases for some people. You know, historically, you've been at a 2.5% increase for many years. So going up to a 7% increase, you know, that's triple.
I agree.
So you know, my recommendation is to do it gradually over the next, say, 5 to 10 years. You're going to do a gradual increase every year to build up those reserves. This year is going to be a transition year while you're getting, you know, the budget to balance. Next year, you can look at increasing it maybe a little bit more or keeping it at 7%. I guess it's just weighing that, you know, how far do you want to increase it? And what effect is that going to have on an average home?
So in theory, what you're saying, if I understand this, we go 7% this year is your recommendation, and next year, opposed to the 2.5% that councils in the past have normally gone to, we go 4%.
Correct.
Is that what you're suggesting? Not
Correct.
7% each year and then increasing it from there?
No, I think it's 7% this year is kind of a, you know, it's ripping off the Band-Aid and getting it done. And then next year looking at, okay, now we're back on track. Maybe the increase is only 3.5. Maybe it's 4. Maybe it's only 2.5.
Okay, I understand. Okay, council. Let's hear your thoughts on that. CFO suggesting we go 7% on municipal tax, 5% on water, and 3% on sewer. Is that correct?
Yes, and 7% on sewer. So
Oh.
it's 7% for municipal taxes and sewer,
Okay.
5% on water, and 3% on solid waste.
Okay, Councillor Paulson. Thoughts?
Thank you. I know that we have been pretty much at a standstill or running in a negative balance with the 2.5% increase. And I think when we need to get the things done in our village that are essential to keep up with all the infrastructure and the buildings and the staff, that we have no choice but to increase it. Otherwise, we're pedaling as fast as we can and going backwards.
Councillor Kushner.
I agree 100% with that. I'd rather see us going forward rather than stagnant.
Okay, Councillor Tinsley.
Yes, I agree. We absolutely have to move forward. just doing the math on my calculator, this overall and all these different ones works out to a 6.2% increase overall. So,
Which, how much per home?
well, a 6.2% increase over all these fees from 2021, right?
Mhm.
If you're looking at it, if you take it all, you take the total change, right? The increase and you
139.
divide it into the 2229, which is the total of all the other fees. Like, if
Yeah.
you get what I
So we're
get what I
looking at-
mean, right?
Yeah, we're at 139 is what the CFO wrote down here. $139 per home, which was it 38 cents a day or something? 38 cents a day.
Yeah, and these properties have gone up in value. I mean, I appreciate everyone has their thing, but the assessed value is going up dramatically, and you know, everything goes up, and it's just the nature of it.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, hydro's gone up, everything has, hit us and gone up. So I mean, the stuff that we're paying for more at home is no different than what the village gets billed for.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so recommended resolution? No, don't need it? No. We'll approve it when we do the bylaw. So let's move forward on the recommendation from the CFO at the 3, 5, and 7 for a total of $139 per year on an average. Increase on average home. Yes.
Yep.
So roughly in that neighborhood.
Yep.
Yours is 339. Okay, so everybody agrees? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
DAO?
Sorry, just to add, again, though, that this covers your current costs and this does not permit a reserve, right?
It is nothing, which is a challenge because we have a reserve policy in place. And in that reserve policy, we are supposed to be feeding it something. Correct? Because if something does happen at the water treatment plant, for example, what do we do? Or if we have an infrastructure issue, what do we do? Do we have a number of what we have in reserves currently? You're getting to that? So here's my concern. I understand that we should do this gradually and the optics of it. But however, if we're not putting any money towards our reserve after all the work and the fact that we need a reserve policy, that's a concern for me. So I would be, and I know this is not the politically correct thing to say, but I believe we should be adding at least 1% onto that and going 8%, so we could start putting some monies away. Councillor Tinsley?
I'm just doing the math here. So at 8%, like if you're working out an average 8% across the board, that's the average figure would be $178 versus 139. If you just take it to $150, that works out to 6.7% increase. It's a nice round number, and it puts a little bit in the reserves.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but on a accounting thing, you have to do it individually, do you not, CFO? It has to be done individually.
Oh, okay.
So you can't do what you're suggesting there.
Okay.
However, for example, in 3 years from now, the sand has to be replaced over at the treatment plant. There is no monies put away for that at this point. None. If a pump goes, there's no money.
Yeah.
To replace that. And we have a reserve policy for a reason. So we don't end up in this situation again in years, every year after year after year. So if we go 8% now, and then next year we look at saying going, the 3 or whatever it's going to be at that time. I know it's not the politically correct thing to do, but we've got to start putting money away.
Yeah, no, I agree. So you're just talking about 8% on the municipal taxes? Is that what we're doing?
Well, no, the water money, correct me if
Everything.
I'm wrong, CFO. For example, if you don't put 7% is just covering the cost on the water. Is that not correct on operations? Correct. Okay, so 8% would give 1 extra percent that would stay in the water reserve, correct?
Correct. So if you go back to page 6, like maybe that chart is the easiest to follow. If you're looking at, if you're wanting to increase every single category by the same percentage. So if you're going to do,
Yeah,
municipal
okay.
taxes, water, sewer, solid waste, everything goes up by 8% or 8.5%. All of those numbers there are for you.
Yeah,
So
oh, nice.
the total is, $189 for 8.5%, $212 for 9.5% on an average home. So that might be the easiest to look at, is what is council comfortable with, as far as, as Mayor Baker says, politically, on an average home. Of course, there's all different combinations. You can have just 3% for your solid waste and 7% for your sewer. But if you just want to go across the board, 1% for all categories, it's in that chart there.
Yeah.
Well, it's it. Some people will pay less and some people will pay more. But however, at the current course that we're taking right now, there is absolutely no monies to go into the reserve. And I think that's a mistake. It's
Yes.
something that we, it's imperative that we do. I mean, we do that in conjunction with responsible spending as well, right? And making
Yep.
sure that projects that we're doing don't have a cost overrun and where we have to go try to find money for and so on and so forth. So my recommendation is 8% or, increasing each category by 1% and putting that 1% directly into reserves. And any cost, for example, we're going into 2023 and some budget money has not been spent, projection was maybe a little high or whatever, then that money goes strictly back into it as well, into reserves. That's my recommendation. Councillor Paulson?
I think I need to see some more concrete figures on this. It's
Well, you see it at 8.5%
right,
on page
Yeah.
6.
but that's a total of, or sorry, it's 8.5% on every service, the municipal taxes, the water, the sewer, and the solid waste. Or are you talking about increasing municipal taxes to 8, the water to yeah.
Sorry, CFO?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, I mean, I think to move forward, it's definitely good to think about reserves and how you're going to fund them. I do have on the next page some information on reserves and surpluses, and I can talk about it when we get to that. But for 2022, it's hard to figure out what combination is going to work best. So what I've done is I've made my recommendation. Certainly you can increase your municipal tax rate by another percentage, go up to 8%. I don't think you need to go that high for water, sewer, or solid waste. There are monies in some of the surpluses for sewer and water, which I'm planning on bringing a report to council later in the year on how that all ties into the reserve policy. Some of that money that's sitting in surplus can be put into some of those reserves. So water and sewer, probably not as big a concern as your monies that you want for other items, other capital items. Yeah, so I think for 2022, again, my recommendation is really based on looking at what I see in the financial plan and what I see in the reserves and how I feel it is going to work best for council. You can talk about this for hours and hours about what combination will work the best. So, but again, if council's looking to increase municipal taxes to 8% rather than 7%, I think that's totally fair. Definitely, I think the average homeowner can afford that. It's not that much more than the 139 that was in that little chart. So Yeah,
Okay.
that's my comment.
So then, as for the recommendation of the CFO, we leave the rest at the 7 and just do the municipal portion at 8% for this year and take a hard look at it next year.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, Councillor Kushner, you agree? Councillor Paulson?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, so that's what we'll do. And if any of us are here next year, after that, we'll,
Are the Russians coming?
no, but we increase taxes like that, you may not be. However, the thing is, folks, is, you know, we have to do what's not necessarily politically correct, but what's best for the village. That's why we were elected to go forward. So that's what's more important.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, CFO?
Okay, so I just included information again on a representative house in the village and what the assessed value was in 2021 compared to 2020 and 2019, and what the preliminary assessments are showing for 2022. So in 2022, a representative house has an assessed value of just over $300,000, about $313,000. And again, that's an average. So a lot of homes will be assessed at a higher value and some are assessed at a lower value. And again, I just included information on what that home would have paid in taxes in 2021. And in 2022, what the increase will be. We're increasing, as council just discussed, the municipal taxes to 8%. So it's going to be a little bit more than 38 cents per day over a 1 year period. Capital items, we discussed already at a previous meeting that, and there hasn't been any change to that. I don't have anything in the budget yet for the replacement of Rescue 33 or the generator for Fire Hall number 1. As again mentioned at a previous meeting, that's sort of hinging on the study that the SRD is doing for the fire service in Sayward. And so at this point, you know, because those are capital items and the SRD does contribute 50-50 to those items, you know, they're just not wanting to commit to anything until those studies are complete. So that may come up later in the year, and I can bring that back to council and we can amend the financial plan. That's not a problem.
Sounds good.
Council also wanted me to provide some information on the LGLA courses for council. So that's the Local Government Leadership Academy, and they do offer several courses for council members. I'd encourage council to visit the website for details on upcoming seminars and events, and I've listed it there in my report. Pretty simple, lgla.ca. There's 2 events coming up, the LGLA 2022 Leadership Forum, that's April 6th to 8th. And I believe the social media survival skills is an online course on April 28th.
Sorry to interject. The
Yeah.
LGLA Leadership Forum, is that online?
I believe it is. I don't know. I actually didn't get those details, but
Okay,
you're more than
we'll get
welcome
the
to check it out
CAO
on
to
the-
look into that.
Yeah, or you can go on the website and have a look yourself. Yeah.
Thank you.
There's also the LGLA certificate program. And again, I didn't get all the details on that program, but it's designed to support and encourage elected officials to enhance your leadership skills and knowledge to enable effective local governance. So that's something else that you may want to look into.
Mhm. I don't see Tony Robbins on here. Sorry. Just a joke.
Tony Robbins is stuck in Vegas with the COVID.
Reserves and surpluses. So I've estimated the 2021 ending balance of each main reserve. And I put a little note here that the reserves that council approved with the new reserve policy have yet to be funded. And as I mentioned, this will be discussed with council at a later date in 2022 in anticipation of the 2023 budget. So I think it may be earlier than that I'll bring information to council, because once I know the final numbers, once the audit is done, I can probably bring something to council and have it outlined as to where the money from last year's surplus can go and into which reserve for 2022. So I'll bring that to council at a later date.
Okay, so let me just ask a question here. The general reserve balance of January 21, okay, or December 31st. Withdraws. So what money in the reserve is it not allocated to go anywhere? Do we know that number?
Sorry, can you clarify your question? What-
Yeah, under general reserve, for example, a lot of times in the reserve fund, you have monies that are sitting waiting to go onto a project. So if an emergency did happen and we had to pull money out of our reserves, I remember last year it was at 85,000. And what would it be this year? Available money to do whatever with.
Well, that's your balance at December 31st, 2021.
So it's increased over 150,000.
I'm sorry, which numbers are you looking at? So general, you had an opening balance of 273,000, right? 273,735 on January 1st. 120,000 was withdrawn, and that was for the dam and fencing the water treatment plant. 85,000 is being added for 2021, and that's because expenditures for 2021 are lower than revenues. So there's some money going back into surplus, which leaves you with an ending balance of 238,735.
Okay, so out of that 238,735, is there any other major bills that we are paying?
Some of that is, yeah, so I understand the question now. That will be brought to council at a future meeting. So some things, yes, but nothing major. Like there's no capital projects coming out of that. Some of the funds, some of the expenditures from the 2022 budget are coming out of that. But again, it all depends, because we're dealing with such small numbers here and we have such a small budget. It really depends, you know, at the end of the year, what type of a surplus we have from, you know, being responsible with our spending and not going over budget. It's really hard to say, you know, at this point, you know, what that balance is going to be. So I can bring some more information to the next
Okay.
meeting for sure.
Yeah, I just wouldn't want to see a balance of the general reserve, say 238, and we're allocated to spend 200,000 on another project.
No.
Okay, thank you.
So I think that's it for my report. I don't know if council wants to go through all the line items again. We did that at the last meeting. There hasn't really been any major changes to note. But certainly if council had any questions or had made any notes, then I can answer them.
Council, do you have any questions?
Not for me.
Not you? Not Councillor Kirschner? Councillor Polson? You're fine as well. CAO,
I'm fine, thank you.
you're fine as well. Okay, thank you very much to the staff, to our CFO for putting all that together. Okay, so we're moving on because we already did the resolution. So we're moving on to bylaws. On 12, none. New business is none. Public question period. We don't have anybody, so there is no public question period. There was nothing sent in. Okay, so that's done. And now we're going to go into camera. So the recommended resolution that in accordance with the section 92 of the community charter, this council meeting will be closed to the public at the time in order the council may be given consideration to the matters in accordance with section 91C of the community charter to discuss labor relations and other employee relations. 16, the meeting is adjourned. Oh, recommended resolution. Sorry, on what I just said, on the in camera. We could have so moved. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Do we have discussion? All in favor?
I'm in favor.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion is carried. 16, adjournment. Okay, that kills the regular portion of our program, and we will reconvene in 5 minutes.